We're getting to a point where we're getting closer and closer to the Mashiach's arrival. And as we get closer to Mashiach's arrival, we have to think about joy differently. Joy has a new role in Judaism. Okay, friends, the story begins. We are starting the next passage in Talmud. We are going to explore the role of joy in Judaism and, believe it or not, the permissiveness of joy in Judaism. We start with a passage from the Talmud in Brachos 31a. In the link that we have sent, should be probably 3 paragraphs in. I don't have the same exact English text as you because I'm using a hard copy, so the translation is going to be slightly not congruent with yours. But Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Ben Yochai. You guys see it? It's prohibited for a person to fill their mouth with laughter in this world. A seemingly extreme statement. It's prohibited for a person to fill their mouth with laughter in this world, as the verse states, that then our mouths will be filled with laughter and our tongues with singing. Then, meaning the future era, right? When Mashiach comes in the future era, we're going to sing, we're going to be glad, we're going to be laughing, implying that now is not the time for laughter. Now is not the time for that. When? During the time that the nations will say that God is great with all of these things. They said concerning Reish Lakish. Again, this was a statement stated by Rabbi Yochanan. So concerning Reish Lakish, who was a study partner with Rabbi Yochanan and almost like a student to Rabbi Yochanan, they said that in his days he never filled his mouth with laughter in this world. As soon as he heard this statement from Rabbi Yochanan, he took it really seriously and never laughed. Okay, this is a wild statement. The Talmud's telling us, don't fill yourself with laughter, don't be joyous, be all serious, and this is going to put Chabad out of business. What are we going to do, man? This raises all sorts of philosophical or theological questions about Judaism. How are we supposed to understand the role of joy in Judaism based on this Talmudic statement? To put things in context, especially since the way that Kabbalists understand the role of joy, I mean, it's fundamental to Judaism. I have here a loose quote from a teaching by Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe. And he writes in one of his teachings that sadness, melancholy, is not from a place of holiness, is not godly. That's not a godly thing. It's not a holy thing. It's not a happy thing. In fact, that is the pathway or the doorstep, as it were, to klipa. But klipa is what we refer to in Kabbalistic lingo as the negative energy that makes us see life superficially, as opposed to kedusha, as opposed to holiness, which gives us the lenses of what life truly is, the life of God and truth. And holiness and joy is going to be holy, it's going to be godly. Sadness is the gateway to klipa, is the gateway to a life that is superficial, a life that is fake. In fact, the famed Reb Aaron of Karlin once said that it doesn't say anywhere explicitly in the Torah, thou shalt not be sad, right? It's not an explicit sin. He says, however, it is worse than any sin. It could take you down, further down than any sin can ever take you. Because when we have sadness and we have melancholy, and we don't mean being sad over a specific situation. Melancholy is really a better translation. When we experience negativity, especially when that negativity disguises itself as something holy and justified, it takes us towards all sorts of dark, scary places. It's a bad thing. All this to highlight the role of joy in Judaism. What does the Talmud say? What is this statement? The prohibition of filling our mouths with joy, our mouths with laughter. Now, I just want to give some more context over here to this statement. This is part of the Agadata of the Talmud, right? There's two parts of the Talmud. The Agada, which means the more philosophical parts of Talmud, and the Halacha, the law of Talmud. This statement happens to be both, because this statement in the Talmud appears in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law. And the commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch trace this back to the Talmud and cite the application. Well, when is it prohibited to fill our mouths with laughter in this world? When the Talmud says that, what is it referring to? There's two opinions amongst the commentaries. Some say it's referring to exile. The Beis Hamikdash has been destroyed. How could we possibly rejoice? Which means during the Second Temple era, this would be a moot point. Right? The prohibition of laughter is based on a verse that we had cited from the book of Psalms by King David, which was prior to the Second Temple era, during the First Temple era. Or prophesizing that during the Second Temple era, the temple's rebuilt, maybe you should be able to be happy. Some say it has nothing to do with the temple, it has to do with the Yetzer Hara. Apparently, too much laughter can lead to frivolity. And frivolity, being frivolous, invites the Yetzer Hara, invites the evil impulse, invites sin, invites negativity. So the Talmud, as well as the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulchan Aruch, warn us, don't laugh. Don't fill your mouth with laughter. Again, that leads us back to the question, well, what is the role of joy in Judaism? Both the Kabbalists explain the importance of joy. Even in Halacha, talks about the importance of joy when doing mitzvahs. Even in the book of Psalms, King David says, serve God with joy, do it Hashem b'simcha. So I'm going to share with you a few answers. Answer number one is kind of a technical answer. And it's not going to do justice, but it is going to help a little bit. Answer number one, look at the text of the Talmud, because every single word is meaningful. The text says, and I'm going to read it in Hebrew and then I'll translate it. Rabbi Yochanan says the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. I read in Hebrew and then I'll translate. Asur la'adam, it's prohibited for a person to yimaleh, to fill schok piv bo'olam hazeh, laughter in his mouth in this world. Don't be full of laughter. Have laughter. Just don't overdo it. Don't be full of laughter. In other words, everything in moderation. Laughter, joy, those are good things. The moment we overdo it, it becomes excessive. Then there's the concern that it leads to frivolity, inviting the Yetzer Hara, inviting the evil impulse. Okay, again, that is an approach. I would not say that's that necessarily my approach. Just hold on yet. Don't shut off the video. If you're not watching this live, don't shut this off yet. Another commentary points out, again, let's look at the words. Person shouldn't fill their mouths with laughter, implying that there is something else that should be filled with laughter, just not your mouth. And that's your heart. And apparently, based on the Zohar, there's this importance of having deep inner joy in our relationship with God, our relationship with the soul, our relationship with Judaism, our relationship with each other. But if it's in the mouth, but not in the heart, if it's external, not internal, we're missing something. And that's why it says, don't fill your mouth with laughter. It doesn't say don't laugh. It doesn't say don't be joyous. It doesn't say don't celebrate. It just shouldn't be filled in your mouth to the exclusion of your heart. It should be deep. It should be real. It should be something we feel in our guts. It should come from a deeper source. It should come from our soul. It shouldn't just be an outer behavior. Otherwise, it seems like it's prohibited. It seems like this is a real problem. There's another explanation, and I think this is very in line with one of the talks of the Lubavitcher Rebbe that I was reading. Again, let's look at the words. A person shouldn't fill their mouths with laughter, be'olam hazeh, which means in this world. Well, where could you laugh? Oh, in the next world? So there's another translation. The prefix beis, bet. Prefix bet, or beis, in Hebrew, can mean in. So be'olam hazeh, in this world. It could also mean with this world. A person shouldn't fill their mouths with laughter, be'olam hazeh, with worldly matters. When it comes to being worldly, when it comes to worldly pleasures, when it comes to things that our animal soul draws us toward, or our Yetzer Hara draws us toward, that's not where we should be experiencing laughter and joy. With this world. In the world, yes. With the world, no. Our joy has to be toward mitzvahs. And in one of his talks, I was reading a talk from the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1953, where he quoted this Talmud, and he says that a person should have joy in this world when it comes to serving God. Because when it comes to serving God, that joy is actually going to help. When it comes to serving God, that joy is going to enable the relationship to be complete. In other words, one of the things that joy does, in other words, joy is necessary, just not with worldly things. But when it comes to a relationship with God, when we have joy, it turns the relationship from being behavioral to complete, to being holistic. From something that we do to something who we are. That's a complete intimate relationship. Without joy, there's no intimacy. Because without joy, there's simply just behaviors. There's just actions. The moment we infuse our service with joy, there's a holistic connection, an internal connection. Very important. One of the things it does two things. Number one, it motivates us. Number two, it creates a holistic relationship. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, used to talk about this a lot. He used to say that when soldiers go out to war, they sing, they have a march, because that joy creates energy, creates passion, creates motivation. And he says, as Jews, we're on a march because we're out to war, right? To fight darkness, to fight negativity, to bring light and truth and meaning to ourselves, to the world. And like soldiers, we have to have a march. We have to have joy. We have to have simcha. And one of the things that's going to do is that's going to carry us up. That's going to lift us up. A number of decades ago, there was a rabbi named Reb Zalman Schneerson, related to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was a rabbi in France. He was visiting Chabad World Headquarters for the high holidays. He was there for Sukkot. He was there for Simchas Torah. And prior to the Hakafos, the dancing with the Torahs, they had a little Farbrengen. Chassidim get together, they say L'chaim, they get in the mood, they inspire each other, they encourage each other. Apparently, Reb Zalman was not in a healthy condition at this point. He was not ambulatory, he was in a wheelchair, couldn't walk. And, they're Farbrengen. He requests that one of the students, oh, by the way, he couldn't have alcohol either. Right, so it's a bit of a dry Farbrengen, no alcohol, and he can't even walk. So it's like, what's the Simchat Torah going to look like, right? He asks one of the yeshiva students to please get him a Tanya. He opens the Tanya to chapter 33, and he begins to read, where the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, addresses what to do when somebody needs more soul joy, needs a soul charge, needs a spark of joy in their service to God. And he reads like those one or two lines. And he was just so inspired by it. He literally popped out of his chair and started dancing without even realizing it. People were shocked. Because the moment we have joy in our relationship with God, however heavy it's going to feel, it's going to be lifted up. We're going to lift up. We're going to take flight. Joy makes things lighter, makes the relationship lighter because it makes the relationship more intimate, because it transforms the relationship from just behavior to being holistic and intimate. So when the Talmud says it's prohibited to have to fill our mouths with laughter in this world, that actually means with this world. Our joy shouldn't be focused on the world. Our joy should be focused in the world, but with God. I was recently reading a powerful talk from the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1988. And you'll soon see how, in general, one thing you see about the Rebbe's talks, this reoccurring themes, whether it's about the Mashiach, whether it's about joy, whether it's about the soul connection, or whatever it may be. But starting from like 1987, maybe 1988, the Rebbe's talks took like a new shape. A lot more powerful, a lot more, I say this respectfully, but radical. The Rebbe shared a radical approach to joy, very different than he had been sharing until now. The Rebbe said this in 1988. He said, we're getting to a point where we're getting closer and closer to the Mashiach's arrival. And as we get closer to Mashiach's arrival, he says we have to think about joy differently. Joy has now taken has a new role in Judaism. This is what he said. There's a new role that joy has in Judaism. We used to think of joy as a mechanism. I have to do what I need to do. I have to do mitzvahs. I have to study Torah. I have to connect to God. I have to do whatever I got to do. And joy is a mechanism to make it more pleasant, to make it more intimate, to make it more meaningful, to make it easier. It's a mechanism. In other words, technically, you don't need, it's a means to an end. In 1988, the Rebbe said, we have to stop thinking about joy as a mechanism, as a means to an end. We have to see joy itself as a service to God. Joy itself is what brings Mashiach. Not just doing a mitzvah with joy, but the joy itself is godly. The joy itself is divine. And here's the reason why. What is joy? Joy is true joy. The truest, pure, there's different types of joy, right? Even spiritually. But the purest form of joy is experiencing the truth of God in its purest form. Not just how I like to experience God, the way I like to feel inspired, right? Which is subjective, right? You ask every single one of us what it feels like to experience God. You might have a different experience, a different emotional, right? It's subjective. But if I can experience the truth of God, which is what's going to happen in the Messianic era, I'm going to have true joy. I'm going to have the purest form of joy. In the Messianic era, when Mashiach comes, as Isaiah prophesies, that the world will be full of the knowledge of God. We're literally going to get to know God in a deep, intimate, meaningful way. And this is going to be true with the experience in the Beis HaMikdash, the third Beis HaMikdash. And by the way, just to illustrate how pure this joy is going to be, the Talmud says that it's toward the end of Tractate Ta'inus. It says that the construction of the Beis HaMikdash was done with joy. Well, here's the thing, it didn't last, which means the joy wasn't so complete. The revelation of God it represented wasn't so complete. The first Beis HaMikdash lasted 410 years, the second 420 years. There was an incomplete joy. We know that the third Beis HaMikdash is going to last eternally, which means it's a complete revelation of God, a pure revelation of God. There's going to be this pure, meaningful joy, not a worldly joy, a godly joy. And the Rebbe said, when we start experiencing that joy now, and when we try to activate that joy now, not just do a mitzvah with joy, but literally just celebrate being Jewish, celebrate the soul, celebrate our relationship with God, celebrate truth, we're starting to live the reality of what's going to take place when Mashiach comes, and we usher it in closer, we bring it closer. Literally just having pure soul joy brings Mashiach closer, because that's what that era is going to look like. and we start living it now, we start bringing it in closer through joy. The Rebbe in that same talk points out that the Hebrew word Mashiach and Simcha share the same root word, the same three-letter root, Shin or Sin, Mem, Ches, because there's an intrinsic connection between joy and Mashiach. And through joy, we bring Mashiach. Through joy, we bring redemption to the world. Through joy, we bring God to the world. We tell God, hey, we're starting to dance with you without you. You better get here. We're ready. We're ready. Like going back to the statement in the Talmud, Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it's prohibited for a person to fill their mouth with joy in this world. Not in this world, with the world. Our joy shouldn't be focused on the world. It should be focused on God. In other words, you have the capacity for joy, whether you like it or not. Where are you going to direct it? Are you going to direct it toward God, or are you going to direct it toward our own, self-servingness, toward our purpose or our self-servingness? And that's why the Talmud says that Reish Lakish, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, in his days, never filled his mouth with laughter with this world as a worldly matter. Of course, he was joyous. You have to be joyous, but not as a worldly thing, as a godly thing, which is a big statement for Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish has his history. He's known to have had his past. He's a Baal Teshuvah. He was a thief. He was inspired by Rabbi Yochanan to come back to his Judaism, and he embraced the true joy. Embraced the true joy of Judaism. Okay, that's my story. Sticking to it.